welcome to my video today. This is a video of what I might call an absolutely legendary game with some commentary at the end. Apologies for the delay between videos, but there's a lot of work to go on the 101 or basics video, which will hopefully drop next week, so I'm going to give you this in the meantime. On element days, I've been challenging myself to play with at least 3 heroes of the element on that day. A bit about this lineup. Nero is one of the best heroes in the game in terms of how he scales. Air Mastery is a very underrated ability, and this lineup gave him 20% by 5 air heroes for plus 100% damage and an additional HP. In this lineup, Adeline is my DPS monster. In my opinion, she's underrated in Castle due to her long charge time and slow attack speed, but as you'll see, she hits very hard. Anish is my free jumper or stopper to hold opponents' heroes back when they respawn. Lynx has solid DPS and also has magic auto attacks, which most of the heroes in Castle are weaker against. And then there's Uolf. Helps me not fall behind too much at the start, as he can throw some crowd control out there and freeze opponents in place. This game is against Darth's leapfrog build, so as you can see, it's a constant onslaught and a bit of a game of whack-a-mole, where Anish holds the enemy back on respawn, and Lynx and Adeline pick them off one at a time as they jump in. In a game like this, there's no chance a traditional crowd control team pulls out the win, as the game extends, as enemies split, so on and so forth. So huge DPS was necessary, and it worked out quite well in my favor. I'll just stop talking at this point and let you enjoy the remainder of the game with some commentary on the next run-through. Hope you enjoyed that game. Now I'm going to do a bit of commentary on this run through of the game and pause in certain areas just to explain some of the thinking that went on throughout. One thing that you'll see I open the game out with is a Myconid, as it is the best opener in the game versus Leapfrog teams. The idea is to slow them down by disrupting their ability to crit with disc and gain charge. That is the general idea versus any Asepi teams across the board, but particularly effective here since the jumpers have naturally long charge times, so they need disc crits to get going quickly. If they get a good start, it's nearly impossible to stop them, as they will get behind Neuro very quickly and you cannot tornado them at that point. So early Myconid cast works well with the build I was using since Uolth is a good follow-up with crowd control. If you don't have Myconid, that's fine. There are other ways that you can slow them down as well, such as freeze or tornado. Here you can see I got a bit lucky since Darth seems to have been trying to jump Otho past my Neuro, so I would miss with the tornado, but luckily he got caught by a few frames as Otho aggroed back. I was so close to my castle with Anish, also that close, I had to assume that he would be able to see and one-shot my castle. Getting rid of that salvo was top priority. Luckily, an Adeline auto attack did almost 4,400 damage on crit to clear him out. Once he was cleared out and my Ansh was past his Neuro due to the split from me killing his heroes and Ansh aggroing them as they respawn, also keeping him away from Neuro in the process. That tells me that a Selva needs at least 2 jumps to reach my castle, since he needs to jump once to get past Ansh, and again to hit my castle, which gives me a little bit of breathing room. As you can see here, this is part of why Otho is so amazing. He can not only use his jump to gain position, but can also crowd control with it, which is a stun and protection doesn't mitigate against. That forced me to use Purify to get Ansh out of there, as I figured his charge had to be close to ready, so that he could jump next to my castle. It was a bit of a panic Purify, but it seems to have worked out. I'm not going to pause for a bit. I'm just going to let it play and talk things through since things are settling down a little bit, just to go through my overall thought process and some of the decision making that happened. For example, I could have killed Neuro many times, as you're about to see, with Adeline, but chose not to since my Ash was anchoring well behind him near the castle. So killing Neuro means there's a good chance that when he respawns, he's in a spot where he can tornado my Ash away and get rid of my anchor or lifeline in this fight. As mentioned, Ansh acted as a stopper up front, forcing my opponents to use jumps to gain positioning, meaning they can't just blitz my castle out of nowhere with it. And that buys me an extra 10 to 15 seconds. As you just saw, an onslaught began again. Salve and Otho coming in, Ansh a few seconds later. This is actually not as bad as it looks. It's not as scary as the early rush, where they can go much deeper in my end, just because we're a bit further up the map at this point. Also, because of the split camera, he can't really avoid my Neuro the way he could before. So for that reason, I can use Tornado to keep him back. And this is both a great strength and a weakness of the Leapfrog build, which I'll talk about in another video. At this point, I felt like I had a very significant advantage since Ansh was holding up strong up top and getting stronger with every Purify I cast. I think I was up to about 2 or 3 at this point. You're about to see my Ansh turn red in terms of health, and we were getting double damage. So that concerned me a bit since he was the only reason I was still alive and able to pick off jumpers one at a time. If Ansh goes down, there isn't much beyond pure DPS stopping him from getting to my castle. On top of that, Adeline, Neuro, and Uolth were all critical health, with barely a sliver left, and Salva just came in to polish them off. This was a big problem for me, especially since them dying would cause the camera to shift. And in this case, I saw Ansh, and I saw he was so critical in health, so I needed to get that one hero power off in order to buy some time for him and hopefully a little bit more survivability until Darth is able to start marching down, and then I have the need to hold him off with pure firepower. As you just saw, Ansh finally went down. So I knew Darth was going to start marching down in my direction, and this was essentially the moment of truth. I was starting to win the war of attrition, and both Freeze Breath and Tornado were critical, since I really didn't want his Salva sniping my Neuro and forcing him back even further upon respawn. Adeline was also paying some serious dividends at this point, since she could basically erase Salva, and was starting to do so with 2,000 auto attack damage at a time, making my backline much, much scarier. At this point, you're going to see in a few seconds, I made a decision to finally take down Neuro. I figured he was already charged, but fortunately was under crowd control, so he couldn't use it. The last thing I wanted was him using Tornado that close to my side, since he would push me back to where my tower used to be, opening things up for his jumpers to basically hit my castle directly. That outweighed the risk of him respawning and being able to push Ansh back with a Tornado, despite the fact that I was happy with the way Ansh was anchoring. The big change here is the fact that the heroes are grouped up in the middle, so there's more vertical range on the Tornado versus side to side or horizontal or diagonal. That allows him to push me back much further into my end than he would have been able to before. So what you're about to see is Darth used his Salva on my Adeline, which was absolutely the right idea. He needed to get her to cool off a bit, and if he used Salva on Neuro instead, she probably would have just one-shotted him at this point. Gotten into range of the castle, and then one-shotted the castle as well. He needed to buy time for his tanks to respawn and recharge to hold position. Remember that we're past the 3-minute mark, so triple damage is in effect, meaning that Adeline is now doing over 1,700 auto attack damage without a crit, and over 17,000 with a crit. That range on Neuro's Tornado that you just saw is exactly what I was talking about before, when I mentioned that I made the decision to kill Neuro with Adeline. He was even further up before, so it would have been much worse at that time. There's also a weird glitch where Tornado seemed to ride his Tornado forward. It's neither here nor there, just calling it out. This was basically Darth's last big push, since the War of Attrition was starting to finally swing my way due to sheer firepower, meaning he was dying at a much faster rate. You can see how long the cooldown on respawning is starting to take if you look at his heroes in the bottom right. The mobility and tankiness of his jumpers was the reason it took so long for this to swing in my favor. Basically, they live a long time, so it is hard to kill in rapid succession, and can get back into the fight as soon as they respawn with a jump. As you saw at the end, or as you're about to see at the end, I used Adeline on Neuro again. We're getting late in stretches of the game, and I finally have a positioning advantage. So I didn't want him breaking up my momentum, which is why I targeted Neuro. All that said, he almost got me with his Ansh at the end when he hit my castle directly with it, since I couldn't kill him between charges. Had he been able to kill 1 to 2 of my heroes at that point, things could have swung in his favor as long as Ansh could stall me at my castle. I managed to finish off the castle with Lynx, which is definitely a first, and only worked because it was 4 times damage. Overall, I would say this was an epic or even a legendary game with a ton of back and forth. But hey, feel free to let me know what you thought of the game and the commentary in the comment section below, and have a great rest of your day.